The record will reflect the presence of counsel for the parties. The defendant is present and be seated, and the jury is present. Mr. Rivera, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state will be calling Linda Popolo, and she'll be making her way into the courtroom.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Okay, good morning, Miss. Is it pronounced Popolo?
It's Popolo.
Okay. Could you please state your full name for us?
Linda Popolo?
And Miss Popolo, do you reside here in Maui?
Yes.
What is your address?
72 Gorman Place
Okay,
in Honolulu.
And how long have you been here in Maui?
I moved here in 1986, so I guess that would make it 30 years in August.
And you've been here during that entire duration from 1986 till now?
Yes,
And do you have family here in Maui?
I do.
And what family members does that consist of?
I have my children, my grandchildren. I have a significant other. I have cousins and aunties.
Okay. Now, let me turn your attention to the Kalama Intermediate School. Were you employed by that school at one point?
Yes, I was the PCNC and a long-term sub at Kelowna Intermediate School.
Okay, and what does PCNC stand for?
Parent Community Networking Center Facilitator.
So you work with the parents and the students as well as teachers of that school?
Like a liaison for the community.
Now, let me turn your attention to the dates from December 2012 to May 2014. Were you still at Kalama Intermediate, or did you have another position?
No, I was the clinic manager of Planned Parenthood of Hawaii
Okay,
in Maui, the Maui office.
The Maui office. Now, at that time, where was the Maui office located?
It was just in that building behind Jack in the Box.
Okay, is this the building that the former Blockbuster video store was in?
Yes, it was upstairs.
To your knowledge, is Planned Parenthood still in that building?
It is a different Planned Parenthood, but it is Planned Parenthood. They've reopened under the Planned Parenthood of the Great Northwest. Planned Parenthood of Hawaii actually no longer exists.
Okay, so at some point they closed and reopened?
Yes.
Now, as the Maui clinic manager, could you briefly describe some of your duties and responsibilities?
I was not a medically trained person per se. They trained me in basic medical, like doing pregnancy tests and things like that. But my main job was to run the clinic, be the administrator of the clinic, be the supervisor of the employees, do all the administration, greet the clients, and handle any kind of problems the clinic might have. If my staff felt uncomfortable, they would defer to me to handle the situation.
And Ms. Popolo, during that time period, was security, if at all, an issue or something that the Planned Parenthood organization was concerned with?
Yeah, sometimes we had protesters, and there were times we had to call the police and we had several people arrested over the years.
What type of security, if any, did you have with respect to, I guess, the office furnishings?
We had the window in front was bulletproof, and we had little buttons that you could push if you wanted to get the police there. We had escape route planned, and the door was a thick door. It was specifically designed to be, thick, that nobody could just break through it.
Now, could you run us through what was the normal procedure or protocol when a patient came into your clinic seeking services?
Well, our clinic was small. We had like 3 MAs, a nurse practitioner, and
what are MAs? I'm sorry.
medical assistants.
Okay.
And so we were a smaller clinic. So 4 days a week we generally did birth control, and maybe 1 day a week we would do abortion. Have an abortion clinic. We've kept that pretty separate. When somebody came to the window, it would kind of depend on who was there in front to wait on them. And the people that would come, there would be these slips on the side, and they take the slips and they fill them out and they pass them underneath the window, and then we would know if they were somebody that was coming in for an appointment or needed an appointment or needed to be screened for abortion services or whatever their need was that day.
All right. When you say slips, you're talking about pieces of paper?
Pieces of paper, forms actually, small
Okay.
forms.
And did you on occasion work at that reception area with the bulletproof glass and that slit through the window?
Yes, we all did.
Was there a receptionist as well?
Not on really busy days. On the abortion clinic day, there usually would be a receptionist in front. Yes.
Okay. Now, did the Maui Clinic provide any other services besides what you mentioned, birth control and abortion?
Abortion service, birth control, and STD counseling and treatment. Options. Just talking about options, pregnancy options. We did some female care for low-income patients that couldn't get it anywhere else, and we had another group of, our doctor was really good with what we called the Golden Girls, which were like people like me over 60, that they would come because our doctor was such a good, she was an excellent doctor, so they liked her and they came to just to see her sometimes.
Okay. Was the patients or the people that would come in, were they primarily women?
Yes.
Did you service the male gender as well?
For STD testing and treatment.
Now, were there occasions that you're aware of where a male and female would both come in together?
Yes.
Now, your role as clinic manager, were you hands-on with any type of counseling or I guess intaking of patients that would come in?
Yeah, we were a small clinic, so everybody did intakes.
Okay. Now, I asked you earlier if you could walk us through the regular or the protocol that you would follow should a patient or somebody come into the Maui Clinic for services. Can you do that?
A person would come through the door. They would come up to the window. If they hadn't been there before, they would know they wouldn't know they had felt the slip. So we would talk to them through the window because we didn't want to talk about their condition through the window. So we would have them fill out the form on the side, and then they would slip it under the window, and then we would know if they had an appointment or they would whatever we needed. If we needed to do a screening, we would bring them back when it was time. If they had an appointment, we would bring them back when it was time.
Now, suppose the person you were able your clinic was able to determine what type of service a person was requesting, whether it be an appointment or screening, what would happen at that point?
Generally, if I was busy on the phones or doing administration, generally the medical assistants would handle it in most of the time, not always. Sometimes I did a lot of the abortion screenings because we were just busy, you know. But generally the medical assistants would handle that.
Okay. Now you testified earlier that there were times when a male would come in with a female, is that correct?
Yes.
Was that very common?
No.
Did you have any type of procedure or policy, if any, with respect to the handling of a female coming in accompanied by a male?
We'd ask her if she would like him, you know, she would come and usually they'd tell us if they wanted him to come in with them.
Okay.
You know, and we say we're having a medical procedure, in general we would not have the patient come back. But if they were doing abortion counseling, or obviously if the woman wanted him with her, we would certainly allow the person, but everybody had to show an ID, and everybody had to be logged, you know, not logged, but they had to show an ID just that we could see an ID.
Pursuant to that practice, though, did you get involved with, I guess, the discussion and handling of a female accompanied by a male?
Yeah. If the assumption was that everything was going well, the medical assistant would bring them back and it would be a normal visit. If things weren't going well, the medical assistant would come out of the room and talk to me and ask me to take over generally.
Was that a practice or was that a rule within that clinic?
It was an agreement between all of us in the clinic. It wasn't a Planned Parenthood rule, but it was how we handled things in our clinic.
And when you say they would come and get you if there was, what phrase or word did you use? Why they would come and get you?
If they felt uncomfortable.
Okay, let me turn your attention, ma'am, to, this is a Friday, October 25th, 2013. Or let me ask you a basic foundation question though. Before you came to work today, were you able to review some records pertaining to records from Planned Parenthood pertaining to a Carly Scott?
Yes.
And now turning your attention to the date, October 25th, 2013, which is a Friday, do you recall having an occasion to meet with Carly Scott?
Yes.
Okay. Could you describe how that transpired? How is it that you came into meeting with Carly Scott?
Well, I don't actually know, you know, I don't remember her filling out the first initial sheet because my medical assistant handled that part of it. But my medical assistant went in the room with Carly Scott and Stephen Capobianco, and they were...
I'll go ahead and object this to lack of foundation.
I'll follow up with questions.
Move to strike the answer.
Okay. Do you have personal knowledge that your medical assistant was in a room on October 25th with Carly Scott?
Yes.
And how is that? What is that based on?
That I saw them go in there.
Okay, good. And when you said you saw them going there, who did you see going there?
I saw Carly Scott and a male companion.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you what has been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 1. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may approach the witness.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Popolo, I'm going to show you what has been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 1. I want you to take a look at it, and I'll have further questions for you. Okay, do you recognize the photograph of State's Exhibit 1?
Yes.
And who's that a photograph of?
Charlie Scott.
Does it accurately depict Charlie Scott back when you saw her on October 25th, 2013.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time the state would move into evidence State's Exhibit 1 for identification.
No objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit number 1, marked for identification purposes, is received in evidence.
And Your Honor, permission to publish.
Permission is granted.
Thank you. So is that how Carly Scott appeared back in October 25th, 2013?
Yes.
And you said she was accompanied by a male, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, if you were to see that male again, would you be able to recognize him, Ms. Popolo?
Yes.
If he's here in this courtroom, could you please point to him and describe the color or colors of his shirt?
He's sitting right over there. He's wearing a black coat. And I don't know what color that shirt is.
Okay.
Gray?
Your Honor, may the record reflect that Ms. Popolo has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
Thank you. Now, you said you saw your medical assistant, what is her name?
Cody?
You saw your medical assistant, Cody, go into a room with the defendant and Carly Scott.
Yes.
Right? Did you go into the room at the same time?
No.
Did you get involved though in that meeting?
I did.
Okay, could you tell us how you got involved in that meeting?
Cody came out after a few minutes and told me.
I'm going to object. Relies on hearsay.
Your Honor, it goes to her state of mind and
It is being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I believe that you can present what it is you'd like to present without relying on the hearsay.
When your medical assistant Cody came out, did she have a discussion with you?
Yes.
And pursuant to that discussion, what did you do?
I asked her what the problem was.
Okay, and did you have a further discussion on that?
Yes.
Without telling us what was said?
Yes.
Okay, and after that further discussion on that, what did you do?
I went in the room by myself to finish the interview.
Now, when you had that discussion with your medical assistant, could you please describe her demeanor, her affect? How was she like?
Your Honor, that essentially is calling for hearsay in terms of nonverbal communications.
Judge, there's no such thing as that.
The court will overrule the objection.
Thank you. You can answer the question.
Okay.
Please describe for us how was Cody, your medical assistant, acting or her conduct when she spoke with you?
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to 403. If he wants this evidence, Cody should be here.
Actually, with respect to that specific question, the objection is sustained.
Okay. Going back to my former question, could you describe her demeanor or her affect when she engaged in that discussion with you?
She told me she was uncomfortable.
Object. Hearsay.
The objection is
Move
sustained.
to strike the answer.
The motion to strike is granted. The answer is stricken.
Okay, Ms. Popolo,
I'm sorry.
I apologize. No, it's my fault. I need to ask you a clearer question. I'm not asking you to tell us what she told you. I'm asking you to describe her person, her affect, her demeanor.
She had anxiety.
And so you then went in the room, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, can you describe what kind of room is this that you went into?
It was the first room on the right in Planned Parenthood, which is a small interview room.
And when you went in there, were both Carly and the defendant still in there?
Yes.
When you first went in there, what if
I
anything?
guess, I'm sorry, Your Honor, to interrupt, but is there any reason to have that picture still out? I mean, may I object to that being displayed while further testimony is being...
Yeah, the state already published it, so we can turn it off at this point.
All right. You may do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Ms. Popolo, my question to you was, what, if anything, did you observe when you first got into that room?
That they were in the room together, sitting there. They weren't saying anything.
Okay. And what was your intention at that point of going into the room?
To find out what the problem was, to talk to them and finish the interview.
When you say to finish the interview, what type of interview was this?
It was an abortion screening.
And you had done that before, you said?
Yes.
Now, pursuant to your practice or protocol, why did you get involved in this abortion screening?
Because my medical assistant felt uncomfortable.
And object
Okay.
to hearsay?
The objection is sustained.
Move to strike?
The motion to strike is granted.
So as you got involved with this abortion screening, did the defendant make any statements, if any, to you during that time?
Yes.
And what statements do you recall?
Objection hearsay?
This is the
The
defendant's
objection
statements.
is overruled.
Okay, you can tell us what statements did this defendant make to you at that time?
Okay. He said that he wasn't with Charlie. That I asked him if he was the father, but he said he wasn't with Charlie, but he guessed he was the father.
He used that word, he guessed he's the father?
Yeah.
When the defendant told you he wasn't with her or with Charlie, and he guessed he was the father, did you look at Charlie's face?
Yeah.
Could you describe her face for us?
She was in pain. It was very painful for her. She was definitely feeling bad about it.
Did you take any action at that point to do anything with respect to the interview?
Well, the next step was to go through the things that offer options, to the patient. Somebody comes in for abortion services, we offer all the options, not just an abortion, but all the other options as well. So as I went through the options, he blurted out that but we're going to go through with it, aren't we?
Who is he speaking to when he said this?
Charlie.
And again, did you have a chance to observe her demeanor as he said this?
She was definitely very much, I believe she was in love with him, and that it was very painful for her.
And object, lack of foundation, speculation?
The objection is sustained.
Move to strike the answer.
The motion to strike the answer is granted.
Okay, without telling us what your belief is,
Mm-hmm.
okay, my question to you is, did you have a chance to observe her demeanor when the defendant is telling her, and I'm paraphrasing this, that we're going through with this, aren't we?
She looked very much in pain, emotional pain.
At that point, did you continue discussing options with both the defendant and Carly Scott in that room?
At that point, I felt it was, Planned Parenthood has protocol about coercion, and I felt
Can you please describe what was a protocol regarding coercion?
that at that point what we would probably do is separate them and try to talk to the woman alone, just to make sure she wasn't being coerced by her partner.
Okay, that's something you as a clinic manager practiced?
Yes.
And so what did you do in this situation with Carly Scott and the defendant?
I told them that what I wanted to do next was give her a pregnancy test,
And why did you bring that up?
because number one, I want to always do a pregnancy test, and number two, it would be a reason to separate, have him go outside while she went into the bathroom.
And can you describe for us how is it that you went about having Miss Scott do a pregnancy test?
I asked Mr. Capobianco to go outside, and he put up a mild objection.
Can you explain what you mean by he put up a mild objection?
He wanted to go with her for the test. It wasn't a strong one. He complied and he went outside like I asked him to.
Okay. And did you do a pregnancy test for her?
Yes, I did.
Or conduct a pregnancy test?
Yes.
And you were still in the room?
No, well, she went to the bathroom and she did in the cup and then put it in the the slot, and then my medical assistant went around and did the test, and then came back in with the results.
Okay. Now, after the pregnancy test was conducted and the defendant is no longer in the room, was any further appointment set for Ms. Scott?
Yes, I took her into the room by herself, and I asked her if she really wanted to do this because she seems unsure, and she said she wasn't sure, but she would make the appointment. So we made her an appointment.
Okay. Appointment for what?
An abortion.
Okay. And do you recall? Now this is in October. This is October 25th, a Friday. Do you recall which month that appointment would have been made?
It was in November, and we did them on Thursdays always. So I don't know which date it was. I cannot remember.
But you recall it being in November
Yes.
of 2013?
Yes.
Now, in November of 2013, did you meet with Ms. Scott for that appointment?
She never showed up.
And when she never showed up, did you do anything?
We called to see if she wanted to reschedule.
You called Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Okay. And was another appointment rescheduled?
Yes.
And do you recall when that one would have been?
December 5th.
Okay. And December 5th, is that a Thursday
It
of
is.
2013? Okay. Now, you said abortions were done routinely on Thursday, is that correct? You have to answer out loud, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Now, is that when the doctor would be there?
Yes.
Were abortions done on any other day commonly, or was it normally Thursday?
Generally not. I mean, we did them every now and again. We'd switch days because the doctor traveled to Kona. She was in Maui and in Oahu.
Now, you had a chance you testified earlier, you had a chance to look at the records on file with respect to Ms. Scott, correct?
Yes.
Were those records complete?
Not really.
Okay. What was missing from the records that you recall?
The November appointment wasn't logged.
And as far as the December appointment, is that December 5th date logged in there?
It's logged as December 6th, but I know that I just remembered that date, December 5th, for some reason. I just had it in my head. We may have called her on the 6th to see if she was going to reschedule, but I'm pretty sure the clinic was set up for the 5th.
Okay. Well, December 5th is a Thursday, so
Yes.
does that sound right?
Yes.
Now, did Ms. Scott show up for the second appointment that you made?
No.
When she didn't show up for the second appointment, did you get into contact with her?
Yes, we called.
Okay. And was any other appointment made after that?
No. She told me she was going to keep the baby.
So I'll just object to that as hearsay, Your Honor.
The objection was
Move to strike.
the motion to strike is granted.
So no other appointment was made after that?
No.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Cross-examination, Mr. Oswald.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to talk about the substance of the evidence that you're presenting first, okay? You remember that it was Stephen Capobianco and Charlie Scott back on October 25th, 2013 who came into that clinic because of a few very specific reasons, right?
Yep.
Okay. And these reasons you gave to a detective before when he asked you, right?
Yep.
Okay. Actually, before I go any further, let me ask you, did you do any preparation for your testimony today? Did you prepare for your testimony with Mr. Rivera or any
Yes.
prosecutor?
Yes.
Okay, when did you do that?
Friday.
Okay. So to be clear, well, how long did you guys spend together?
Half hour?
Okay, so Mr. Rivera has prepped you for your testimony today.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else, like any family members from Charlie Scott? You talk with them or anything?
I met only one family member from Charlie Scott at the Haiku Ho'olalea back in March, and
And who was that?
the mother,
Okay, and you talked with her mother?
I did, I hugged her.
Okay. Okay, now in terms of why you remember that this was Stephen Capobianco back on October 25th of 2013, and I just want to ask you in terms of the accuracy of your memory, because you seem to have not missed a second when Mr. Rivera asked you whether December 5th was a Thursday, 2014 was a Thursday or not. How did you know it was a Thursday?
I looked it up
Oh, in preparation with Mr. Rivera?
before I even talked to him, because I remembered that date
When did you look it up?
before I ever called the prosecutor's office, because I remembered that date in my head, and I just wanted to see if I was right.
A Thursday.
Yeah.
Now, the reasons you gave why you remember this is Stephen Capobianco is because Charlie, as you recall, was taller than the male she came in with, right?
Seemed to be, yeah.
Well, not seemed to be. When you talked to the detective, that was you were clear about that. Not seemed to be. You were clear that she was taller.
Argumentative.
And
The
that,
objection is sustained.
I mean, your answer, you're nodding your head that I'm right, right? That
Judge, I object to counsel's form of question and his tone of
objection
voice.
is
That's very
sustained.
unprofessional.
You may rephrase your question.
when you talked with the detective, it wasn't like she seemed taller. It was that she was taller, right? And that's what struck you as a point to remember, right?
Yeah, well, I'm 5 foot tall, so yeah, it seemed that they were both tall to me.
No, but let's not minimize what you specifically told the detective. You told the detective that she was clearly taller than him,
Judge, I
right?
object of him accusing this Ms. Pupple of minimizing.
The objection is sustained.
Thank you.
And then you said that you remember with Stephen Capobianco because you remember Charlie had red hair, right? That was another reason, right? You need to answer for the record.
Yes.
I'm sorry. And then you also said, oh, the other reason I knew it was Stephen Capobianco is because Charlie has the same name as my daughter,
Yes.
right? And then the other reason you said why you remember this was Stephen Capobianco was because he was saying things under his breath, making things difficult. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Now before we go further, let's break this down. Out of the 4 specifics, why you say you remember, and actually let me back up, because at no time during that interview did you mention to the detective that Mr. Capobianco showed you his ID, right?
I didn't think of that at the time.
Well, but the fact is, you didn't see his ID because you didn't do the intake on this one, right?
That's right.
You weren't even there.
No, the MA, that was procedure. If I said that, I misspoke.
But in this case, you would not have been the one who was presented with his ID, right?
That's correct. I did not see the ID.
Okay. So, out of the 4 specifics, why you say you remember it was Stephen Capobianco, would you agree with me that only one goes to identifying him? And that is his height compared to Carly?
No.
Well, you'd agree with me that 2 of those other specifics go towards remembering Carly, right? The red hair and her name being Carly, right?
No.
I thought you just told us that
I,
there were
I-
4 specifics and 2 of them were about Carly having red hair and your daughter being named Carly, and that's why you
but I
remember it was
thought
Carly
of-
Scott.
When I remember this incident, I remember it as a whole, not just one piece of it.
So
I
Mr.
don't-
Rivera likes that. You likes that answer. He's nodding his head, okay? But
I'm sorry.
that's not what you told the detectives, right?
I don't know what you're
At this
getting
point,
at.
this is confusing and is argumentative.
Yeah, I'm very confused.
Okay. We'll break this down nice and slow.
No, I object to the question, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection to the question. I'll also caution both sides to please be cautious with respect to my purpose questions and references. The court doesn't consider that appropriate. Proceed.
We went over 4 factors, and you agreed. And you agreed with me that 2 of the factors were about Carly's red hair and your daughter being named after Carly, right?
Right.
Okay. Now you'd agree with me that those don't go towards Stephen Capobianco being the male there. That goes towards Carly Scott being the female there, right?
Like I said before, I see it as one incident. I saw so many people at that clinic. I see it as one incident. That when I thought of them together.
Okay, so you don't want to answer my question? Is that?
Your objection,
just
that's
don't-
argumentative.
Okay, let me move on. And you'd agree with me that the last of the 4 reasons why you remember this is Stephen Capobianco, really just presumes the first reason, because this last reason was that he was saying things under his breath, but that really presumes that it's your first one, which is that it's Stephen Capobianco, basically, right?
Objection vague and confusing.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Well, I mean, when you
I'll overrule the objection, but you'll obviously have to rephrase the question.
I mean, because when you say that he was saying things under his breath, making things difficult, that presumes that it was Stephen Capobianco, right?
I don't know why it would presume that. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but I remember it being Stephen Capobianco.
And you gave us, and the detective, 4 reasons why, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But when we boil it down, the only reason that applies to Stephen Capobianco would be that you recall him being shorter than Carly Scott, right?
Judge, objection that misstates the testimony and has been asked and answered numerous occasions.
The objection is overruled. And you have to repeat the question.
I'll just move on. Okay, before I go further, let me just clear this up. To be clear, if Carly Scott did not want that male there, and all she needed to do was express that, right? And you would have made sure that the male was not there, right?
That is true.
Okay. But she did not express that in this case, right?
It doesn't always happen that way. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes women are being coerced and they need just, all we wanted to do is be sure that we talked to her alone for a minute.
Okay, I asked a simple question about whether that happened this time.
This time she did not ask to be alone, no. But
Okay.
after he left.
But why? So when I ask you a simple question like that, why do you feel a need to go?
Objection, this
No,
is
this
argumentative.
goes to motive, bias, interest.
I will overrule the objection now. You may finish your question.
When I asked you a very specific question about whether Carly did something or not in this case, why do you feel the need to answer me with, oh, it usually doesn't, or use something different time? Why is it that you need to not respond to my question?
Okay, I
Judge,
can
I
answer
object. That
It's-
is argumentative.
It's a yes or no.
Hold on.
I'll overrule the objection. You may answer the question.
It wasn't a yes or no answer. There was more to it than just a yes or no.
You didn't hear the part about this case?
Yeah, in this case, there was more to it than just a yes or no. I don't. That's just the way I see it. I'm sorry. What you think is I should be saying.
I mean, let's
but-
talk about the way you see it, because you're the first witness, you must be an important one.
Objection, that's argumentative,
The
Judge.
objection is
The reality is, you are Robert Rivera's mother's friend? right?
I worked for his mother. Yeah.
So how long have you known Mr. Rivera?
I met him twice. Once when he spoke as a PCNC speaker at one of our events, and I met him I met him 3 times. I met him when they interviewed me, and then I met him again on Friday.
Okay, let me ask you this. Going back to October 25th, 2014, if the male's behavior was so remarkable, out of all the sea of people that you serviced at Planned Parenthood over your time there, did you make a single notation of coercion on any of the medical records?
Your Honor, the state objects to being argumentative, the word remarkable, that's not a testimony.
I'm asking her whether she made a remark over anything remarkable.
The objection is sustained. You may rephrase the question.
Be a little more specific about that, as a matter of fact. You'd agree with me that if Mr. Capobianco or whoever male that was, if the behavior of that male was so coercive, there's nothing preventing you from making a note of that in any of the documents or questionnaires that you helped Carly Scott fill out, right?
Say it again. I'm not sure what
Was
you're
there anything
saying.
stopping you from noting that on any of the records?
It's not something we would normally know. It was a clinical environment. It's not something we would normally know.
Isn't one of the specific questions asked on the questionnaire whether she's being coerced?
And she answered no. It was her questionnaire, not mine.
And you're telling me that if it was a remarkable case that you observed, you're not in a position to even write anything in the margins, oh, I observed coercion?
I'm saying it wasn't the way we handled it.
Well, the way you did say you handled it is that, you got all kinds of, you even have a button to press for the police?
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't the case here, right?
No.
No need for that or anything, right?
No, he didn't cause any problem like that. We just wanted to be sure.
And
we
nor
wanted to talk to her.
did he do anything that made you alert any other staff or even make a single notation of his actions on any of the documents, right?
No, we just wanted to be sure.
Now, based on the documents that Charlie filled out, you'd agree with me that she self-reports as being 5 foot 10 inches, right?
I don't remember.
Would looking at her Planned Parenthood patient registration form refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's the other one.
Sure, I just didn't, I just knew she was tall, I'm sure.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may proceed.
Okay.
So Charlie self-reports at 5 foot 10 inches. Would that be accurate? Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, would it be accurate that you had never met Charlie or that male that was in that clinic before?
Yes.
And that, in fact, that was the only time you had seen those two individuals?
Yes.
Okay. But you'd agree with me that there is one other way that you would have identified Stephen, and that is that he was the person that was served up to you in the papers over the months that you waited to come forward, right?
No, I recognized him. When I saw the paper, I recognized him.
When you saw the papers over and over with his picture on
Well,
it, right?
of course I did. Everybody did.
Okay. Well, just to be clear, this is not like you were given a lineup with people that kind of fit his profile.
No, I was not given a lineup.
And made a choice of Stephen, right?
No, I was not given a lineup.
You were able to pick the person who was in the front page over and over and over of the Maui News, right?
I was able to see his picture, yes.
Okay, having said all this, your testimony is that this all happened on October 25th, 2013, right?
Yes.
Now, you'd agree with me that if I bring in evidence showing that Stephen Capobianco was at work all day, that would put into question your testimony?
There's objection, that's argumentative, it's speculation, and there's no evidence of that at this point.
The objection is,
So is there a question for me?
Apparently not.
you need to answer the question.
Okay.
And you'd agree with me that if Stephen Capobianco is actually taller than Charlie Scott, that also puts into question your recollection.
Objection, Your Honor, that's argumentative.
The objection is
Okay, before I go further, let me ask you this, because I think I'm a fan of yours. You call in the Brother Joe Hawkins in the morning to do the Acura sales? Is that you?
Oh man, you got the wrong girl.
Oh, is there another Linda?
Oh yeah, there is.
Okay.
You're not my fan.
Who is that other Linda?
Her name is Linda Ludwig.
Okay. Now, you talked about information shared with you when you took Charlie into the room by herself. Isn't it true that one of the things that she told you was, or to your recollection, was that they were together when the child was conceived, but he doesn't want to be with her? But he no longer wants to be with her?
Something like that.
Well, I mean, you didn't say something like that to the detective.
I didn't say
That is-
exactly that either.
Okay, well. Let's see what you did say. Because you do recall speaking with the detective. I think it was Detective Hamilton back on February 10th of this year. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And at some point, Detective Hamilton, this is page 4 of the interview, counsel. You were asked, okay, and when you got him out of the room, what did you guys talk about? And your answer was, we talked about them not being together. And she said they were not together when, you know, but now he doesn't really want to be with her, you know. I mean, isn't that pretty much what?
But I never used the word conceived.
Well, what did you mean when you say, you know?
Well, they were together at some point. I don't know when, and that they weren't together anymore now.
Well, but in the context of this statement, didn't you understand it to mean that when they conceived the child, that, or the unborn
That's
fetus,
why I
that
said
they were there for?
No, but that's why I said something like that, because I didn't use the word conceived, and you did. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible.
But isn't that what? Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay, and then you'd agree with me that when Detective Hamilton asked you back on February 10th, well, let me ask you this. Do you remember whether this person who supposedly came in with Carly had any facial hair or not?
I don't.
You don't remember?
No.
Okay. So for all you know, this person may have had facial hair?
I just don't remember it that clearly. No. It's a long time ago.
So you remember everything, but you don't remember whether this person had facial hair or not?
No,
I
I
object to
don't.
the form of the question as being argumentative.
The objection is...
I don't remember that
Just one other
specific
man.
thing.
Excuse me. The objection is...
And just as importantly, the best description you give about the person, the male person who was at that clinic on October 25th was that he had an average body shape, right?
Judge, I object again as to the form of the question, just
The
as
objection
important.
is sustained.
Thank you.
You agree with me that how you would describe the body shape of the person, of the male who came to the office that day, is one of an average body shape?
I guess, yeah.
Do you guess or yeah?
Average is a relative term. I don't know what that means.
Well, I mean, when Detective Hamilton asked you, you were clear, right?
Yeah, I guess that's what I said. Yeah, I don't know the transcript. I don't have the luxury of having the transcript in front of me so I can read what I said. Something like that, yeah.
You need a transcript to remember what your own words were?
My exact words? Yeah. I don't think anybody was going to remember their exact words.
Let me see if I understand what you're offering as evidence today. It's essentially that Stephen Capobianco had a motive to kill Charlie Scott. Is that the gist of your evidence?
I don't think that's my place to make that decision.
Okay. You don't have any evidence otherwise tying Stephen Capobianco to the charges he's being charged with in this crime?
Judge, objection.
Other
That's
than-
irrelevant.
That is a very
witness.
That's the most relevant question in this trial.
Excuse me.
That's objection. That's argumentative, Your Honor.
Whether this...
Raised, sustained both objections.
Thank you.
And witness need not answer the question. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Charles?
No further questions, thank you.
Any redirect examination?
Ms. Popola, you're sitting there right now. Can you tell us under oath if the defendant sitting at that table with that blue suit coat is the same person you saw with Carly Scott on October 25th, 2013?
Yes.
Object,
Is there any question in
bolstering
your
the
mind?
witness?
Excuse me.
I'm going to object, bolstering?
Redirect, Your Honor.
The objection's over.
You can answer that question and tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is that the same person back on October 25th, 2013?
Objection leading?
It is the same
Objection
person.
leading?
Excuse me. The objection is sustained.
Move to strike any answer?
The motion is granted. You may rephrase your...
Is there any question in your mind, Mr. Popolo, that defendant is the same person that you saw on October 25th, 2013?
Objection argumentative and leading?
Judge, is there any
Sustained-
question in your mind?
Excuse me. Sustained is leading. You'll need to rephrase.
Are you sure that the person sitting in court here today is a person you saw with Carly Scott on October 25th, 2013?
Yes.
Are you sure that's the same person that told Carly Scott, I'm going through with this? Are you?
Yes.
Object is the leading?
Judge, that's-
The objection is sustained.
Move to strike the answer?
The motion is granted.
I'm almost done here. You don't have no further questions, thank you.
Any re-cross-examination?
Not from defense.
Are there any juror questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We'll take a recess at this time.
Was in recess.
So we just have to press that button.